The severance agreement slid across the mahogany table with a soft, expensive hiss, sounding like a snake settling into dry leaves. I didn't look at the paper immediately. Instead, I looked at Blake's hands. They were manicured, soft, and currently drumming a rhythmic, impatient beat on the leather armrest of his Herman Miller Aeron chair. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the quarterly projection graph projected on the wall behind me, a jagged red line that apparently justified ending a 7-year career in 15 minutes. It's nothing personal, Mika, Blake said, finally deigning to make eye contact. His eyes were that hollow shade of blue you usually find on error screens. We're pivoting. Leaner meaner, the board wants hard assets, tangible ROI. And frankly, your department, what do you call it? Cultural bridge building? It's a cost center, it's soft skills. We need sharks, not diplomats. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap. I could feel the cold air conditioning of the San Francisco high-rise biting through my silk blouse, a sharp contrast to the burning heat rising in my chest. Before I continue with how I dismantled this man's career without raising my voice, I'd appreciate it if you could hit subscribe and maybe like this. It helps the algorithm find more people who appreciate a good corporate implosion. Anyway, back to the execution. Blake, I said, my voice steady, betraying nothing of the vertigo spinning in my skull. We are 2 weeks away from finalizing the Tokyo partnership. The Memorandum of Understanding with Kobayashi Heavy Industries is sitting in legal right now. My relationship with CEO Tanaka is the only reason they haven't walked away during the acquisition rumors. Blake laughed. It was a dry, barking sound, devoid of humor. He leaned back, clasping his hands behind his head, exposing sweat stains on his powder blue dress shirt. Tanaka needs our tech, Mika. Let's not pretend tea ceremonies and knowing which way to bow are keeping this deal alive. It's the IP, it's the numbers. Your cultural handholding doesn't generate ROI, it's just woke window dressing. We have Google Translate, we have legal, we're good, woke window dressing. The phrase hung in the air, heavy and stupid. I looked around the room. I had built this department from scratch. I had spent 7 years learning the names of our partners' children, memorizing the birthdays of their wives, understanding the intricate, unspoken web of obligation, Jiri, that holds Japanese business society together. I had flown to Osaka on Christmas Eve because a junior executive insulted a client's heritage. I had saved this company millions in litigation simply by knowing when to stay silent in a meeting. And now, man whose entire personality could be summed up by a Patagonia vest and a crypto wallet was telling me I was decorative. I see, I said, reaching for the pen. I didn't uncap it yet. If I am terminated today, effective immediately as this document states, I will not be present for the final signing ceremony in Tokyo on the 15th. Correct, Blake smirked, checking his Apple Watch. I'll be leading the delegation. I've read a Wikipedia article on etiquette. Don't worry, I won't wear shoes on the tatami mats or whatever. Just sign the papers, Mika. We're offering you 3 months severance. Generous considering the budget cuts. I uncapped the pen. The ink was black, permanent. Blake, the relationship with Kobayashi-san is not transactional. It is relational. If I am not there, he will view it as a personal slight, a disruption of wa harmony. I am happy to write a transition document, a brief on the specific protocols required for the signing. There are complexities. Blake waved his hand dismissively like he was shooing away a fly. No need. I don't want you cluttering the drive with PDFs nobody reads. We're streamlining. Clean break. You pack your box, hand over your badge, and enjoy early retirement. Go take a yoga class. Center your chakras, I signed. The loops of my signature were sharp, precise. I wasn't signing my resignation, I was signing his death warrant. He was too arrogant to read the fine print of human behavior. Very well, I said, standing up and smoothing my skirt. I didn't slam the chair. I didn't throw the water glass. I moved with the slow, deliberate grace that I had honed over thousands of hours of high-stakes negotiations. I will clear my desk within the hour. Great, Blake said, already typing on his phone. Leave the key card with reception. And Mika, don't take it personally. It's just business. I walked out of the conference room, the glass door clicking shut behind me. The office buzzed with the frantic energy of a Tuesday morning. Junior analysts were sprinting with coffee cups. The sales team was ringing a bell in the corner. None of them knew that the foundation of their biggest projected revenue stream had just been liquidated because a VP wanted to trim 0.05% off the operating budget. I walked to my office, my corner office, one with the view of the bay, the one filled with gifts from international partners that Blake probably thought were bribes, a hand-painted fan from Kyoto, a bottle of 30-year-old Suntory whiskey, a calligraphy scroll that read patience is the foundation of eternal peace. I took a box from the supply closet. I didn't pack everything. I packed the personal items. The photos of my parents, the award for global excellence from 3 years ago, the fan, the whiskey. I left the files. I left the contact lists. I left the handwritten notes on Tanaka-san's preferences, that he hates green tea but loves roasted barley tea, that his left knee bothers him when it rains so we always book restaurants with elevators, that his granddaughter collects American state quarters. I left it all because Blake wanted a clean break. He wanted to streamline. As I taped the box shut, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Tanaka-san's executive assistant, asking about the flower arrangements for the signing ceremony. Mika-san, regarding the ikebana, should we prioritize the chrysanthemum or the iris? The chairman wishes to honor your company's longevity. I looked at the phone. I looked at the empty desk. I didn't reply. I picked up my box, walked to the elevator, and pressed the down button. The doors opened, revealing a reflection of a woman who looked calm, poised, and utterly professional. Inside, I was burning with a cold, clear fire. Blake thought he had cut a cost. He had no idea he had just severed the aorta of the deal. The elevator descended, and for the first time in 7 years, I didn't worry about the company's future. I just wondered how long it would take for the body to hit the floor. My apartment in Pacific Heights is a sanctuary of silence. Minimalist furniture, neutral tones, and a view of the fog rolling over the Golden Gate Bridge. It is the antithesis of the chaotic, fluorescent-lit hellscape I had just departed. For the first 48 hours, I did nothing but sleep and drink expensive matcha. I turned my phone off. I didn't log into LinkedIn. I simply existed in the void, letting the adrenaline of 7 years of 60-hour weeks drain out of my system. When I finally turned my phone back on, the notifications cascaded in like a digital avalanche. 17 missed calls from the office, 4 voicemails from the legal department, and a chain of emails from the Tokyo team that had been forwarded to my personal address by a sympathetic former assistant, Sarah. I sat at my kitchen island, sipping tea, and opened the first one. Subject, urgent, dinner seating chart, from Blake VP at Company Com to Japan team all guys. Why are they asking about seat assignments for the dinner? Just put Tanaka at the head of the table and fill in the rest. Why is this a 3-hour discussion? Figure it out, I smiled, a tight, humorless smile. In Japan, the kamaza, the seat of honor, is not just the head of the table. It depends on the door location, the view of the garden, the hierarchy of the guests, and the specific history of the relationship. Put Tanaka-san in the wrong chair, and you haven't just made a mistake. You've told him he is subordinate to his own juniors. You've insulted his ancestors. I scrolled down. Subject, gift exchange protocol from Kobayashi admin desk to Blake VP Honorable Blake-san, we inquire regarding the reciprocal gifting ceremony. Mika-san usually coordinates the specific vintage for the chairman. We have not received the manifest. Please advise. Response from Blake, tell them we're bringing swag bags, branded hoodies, and those high-end Bluetooth speakers. The expensive ones, they'll love it. I actually laughed out loud. Hoodies, for a 70-year-old billionaire who collects Edo period pottery. Blake was bringing him a polyester sweatshirt with a corporate logo. It was like bringing a Happy Meal to a Michelin star banquet. I closed the laptop. I could have intervened. I could have sent a quick text to Sarah, telling her to buy a specific bottle of 1994 Cabernet that Tanaka adored. I could have explained the seating chart. But Blake had been very clear. Woke window dressing, cost center. If I helped now, I would be validating his insult. I would be proving that the company could function without me, even if I was pulling the strings from the shadows. No, they had to feel the weight of my absence. Later that afternoon, I drove across town to visit Arthur, my mentor. Arthur was a retired diplomat, a man who had negotiated trade deals during the Cold War. He lived in a house filled with books and smelled of pipe tobacco and old paper. So, Arthur said, pouring me a glass of sherry. They cut the cord. With a rusty knife, I replied, 2 weeks before the signing. Arthur whistled low and long. Suicide. Do they know about the clause? I doubt Blake read past the executive summary, I said. He sees the Japanese market as a vending machine. Put money in, get tech out. He doesn't understand that the machine has a soul. And Tanaka, he's a man of extreme pride, I said. He values loyalty above profit. When he finds out I've been discarded like a seasonal intern, he won't scream. He'll just close. Arthur nodded, his eyes twinkling. The silent withdrawal. The most devastating maneuver in the East. What is your play, Mika? I'm going to Kyoto, I said. Arthur raised an eyebrow. To beg for your job back? No, I said, looking at the sherry swirling in my glass. To attend the International Symposium on Cross-Cultural Commerce. It's held at the Kyoto International Conference Center. Next week. Ah, Arthur smiled. And who sits on the board of that symposium? Tanaka-san's son, I said. Brilliant. Arthur raised his glass. You aren't going to sabotage the deal, Mika. You're simply going to exist. You're going to be visible, honorable, and employed by yourself. You will let them see the contrast between your respect and your former company's negligence. Exactly, I said. I'm not fighting Blake. I'm just going to let him fight himself. He's bringing hoodies to a sword fight. I left Arthur's house feeling lighter. The plan was in motion. Back at my apartment, I saw another email notification pop up on my phone. Subject, where are the files? From Blake VP Mika. If you deleted the donor lists and the protocol docs, that is destruction of company property. Legal is CC'd. Where is the Japan Bible you talked about? I didn't delete anything. I just hadn't organized it for him. The files were there, buried in 7 years of subfolders, labeled in a mix of English and kanji, organized by a logic that only I understood. I typed a reply. I deleted it, instead. I opened a new tab and booked a first-class ticket to Osaka. One way. The cracks were starting to show, and I was about to go watch the dam break from the front row. While I was packing my Rimowa suitcases with modest, high-collared dresses suitable for Kyoto's conservative business climate, Blake was apparently taking a victory lap around the office. According to Sarah, who was risking her own job to keep me updated via encrypted signal messages, Blake had announced in the Monday all-hands meeting that the Tokyo deal was locked and loaded. He literally used the phrase slam dunk, Sarah texted. He told the team that some people overcomplicate international business to justify their salaries, but he's proving that American dynamism is what really sells. American dynamism. That's what he called it. I called it loud incompetence, but potato, potato. I landed in Osaka on a Tuesday, 3 days before Blake's delegation was scheduled to arrive. The humidity hit me the moment I stepped out of Kansai Airport, a thick, warm blanket that smelled of sea salt and distant asphalt. I took the Haruka Express train to Kyoto, watching the dense urban sprawl give way to green hills and tile-roofed houses. My hotel was a ryokan in the Higashiyama district, a place of hushed whispers and cedar wood baths. I wasn't here to relax, though. I was here to work, but not for Blake. The International Symposium was a gathering of the elite, diplomats, CEOs, and cultural attaches. I arrived early on the first day, wearing a charcoal suit that whispered authority. I registered under my own consulting LLC, which I had formed approximately 4 hours after being fired. The moment I walked into the main hall, I felt the shift. It wasn't loud. It was a subtle realignment of attention. Several executives recognized me. Bows were exchanged. Business cards, Meishi, were presented with two hands studied carefully and placed in leather holders, not shoved into pockets. And then I saw him. Kenji Tanaka, the son of the chairman of Kobayashi Heavy Industries. He was standing near a display of sustainable energy prototypes, looking bored as a British consultant droned on about carbon credits. I approached slowly. I didn't interrupt. I waited until there was a natural lull in the conversation, waiting in his peripheral vision so he could acknowledge me or ignore me. He turned. His eyes widened slightly, the only sign of surprise he would ever show. Mika-san, he said, bowing low, I did not expect to see you. My father believes you are in California, preparing the final documents for the signing. I bowed back, slightly lower than him to show respect, but not so low as to appear subservient. Kenji-san, it is an honor. I'm afraid there has been a restructuring. I'm no longer with the company. I let the words hang there. I didn't explain. I didn't complain. I didn't say they fired me because your new partner is a moron. I simply stated the fact with zero emotion. Kenji frowned. The air around us seemed to drop 5 degrees. Restructuring? But the memorandum explicitly states, he trailed off, his mind working through the implications. Does Blake-san know? Mr. Blake is a man of great confidence, I said carefully. He believes the deal stands on its technical merits alone. Kenji looked at me, really looked at me. He saw the lack of panic. He saw that I was here at a prestigious conference respected by his peers while my former company was flying blind. This is disturbing, Kenji said quietly. My father values continuity. He refers to you as the Osuagakari, the one who cares for the relationship. If you are gone, I am sure Mr. Blake has a plan. I lied. He is bringing gifts. High-end speakers, I believe. Kenji's face went blank. Speakers. We manufacture speakers components for half the world. I know, I said softly. And he is bringing them to my father, a man who is deaf in his left ear? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I actually hadn't known Blake was that unlucky, but it made sense. Blake didn't do research. I am here simply to maintain my own relationships in the region, I said. Please, do not let my presence disturb your business with my former employer. I wish them only the best. You are very gracious, Mika-san, Kenji said. More gracious than they deserve. He bowed again, deeper this time. I must make a call. He walked away toward the terrace gardens. I watched him go, taking a sip of lukewarm water. I hadn't struck a match. I hadn't poured gasoline. I had simply told the truth in a room where reputation was currency. Back in California, Blake was probably high-fiving his reflection in the mirror, thinking he was the master of the universe. He didn't realize that in Kyoto, the ground had just shifted beneath his feet. The foundation wasn't just cracked anymore. I had just removed the rebar. The disaster unfolded in real time, transmitted to me via a series of bewildered texts from the Japanese administrative staff, who confusingly still thought I was in charge. They didn't know I'd been fired. They just thought I was delayed. They were messaging me for help because Blake's team was currently setting fire to 200 years of decorum. Text from Yumi, Kobayashi reception. Mika-san, the delegation arrived. They are loudly complaining about the jet lag in the lobby. The tall one, Blake-san, is wearing sunglasses indoors. Is this a medical condition? I sat in a tea house in Jin reading the message. Sunglasses, indoors. In the lobby of a conservative zaibatsu, it screams yakuza or disrespectful tourist. Take your pick. Text from Yumi, they did not bring business cards. The junior assistant Tyler tried to airdrop his contact info to Chairman Tanaka. The chairman does not have an iPhone. There was awkward silence. I closed my eyes. The Meishi exchange is sacred. It's not about the contact info, it's about the ritual. You present the card with two hands, name facing the recipient. You receive theirs with reverence. You study it. By trying to airdrop a V card, Tyler had essentially told the chairman, I can't be bothered to print a piece of paper for you. But the real horror show happened at the welcome dinner that evening. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from Kenji, who met me for a discreet drink later that night at a bar that seated only 8 people and served whiskey older than the American Constitution. It was colorful, Kenji said, swirling his ice. He looked exhausted. Tell me, I said. Blake-san refused the seating arrangement, Kenji said. We placed him next to the VP of Operations as is protocol for his rank. He insisted on sitting next to my father. He moved the place card himself. I winced. He moved the card? He moved the card. And then Kenji took a long drink. He poured his own sake. In Japan, you never pour your own drink. You pour for others and they pour for you. It's a communal act of service and bonding. Pouring your own drink is a sign of arrogance, isolation, and greed. It says, I need no one, I take what I want. My father watched him, Kenji continued. He watched him pour the sake, spill a little on the tablecloth, and then slap my father on the back and say, let's get this bread, Tanaka-san. Please tell me he didn't say let's get this bread, I whispered. The translator struggled, Kenji admitted. She translated it as let us acquire the wheat products. My father was very confused. He thought Blake was proposing a bakery venture. Kenji, I am so sorry, I said. I felt a genuine pang of shame. Even though they weren't my team anymore, they were my countrymen. They were embarrassing my culture in front of his. It gets worse, Kenji said. When we presented the gift, a hand-forged katana from a living national treasure, symbolizing the cutting edge of our partnership, Blake laughed. He asked if he could carry it on the plane. He made a joke about Kill Bill. The silence in the bar was heavy. A living national treasure sword is priceless. It's a spiritual object, making a movie reference, it's sacrilege. And then Kenji sighed. He gave my father the speakers. He said, these have insane bass, old man. You'll feel it in your chest, and your father, he smiled. The smile he uses before he fires someone. He thanked Blake for the noise machines. Kenji looked at me. Mika-san, my father asked where you were 3 times. Blake evaded the question. He said you were handling logistics stateside. He lied. I know, I said. Why? Because he thinks he doesn't need me. He thinks the contract is stronger than the relationship. Kenji set his glass down. The contract is the relationship. He does not understand that if there is no trust, the ink does not stick to the page. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from a lawyer at my old firm, someone who had actually read the documents. Text from Legal Dave. Mika, are you in Tokyo? I'm looking at the MOU Clause 14B. Cultural Liaison Requirement. It explicitly names you as a condition of the partnership continuity. Blake just texted saying he crushed the dinner. Did he tell them you're out? If they find out, we are in breach. I showed the text to Kenji. He read it. He looked up at me. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. Clause 14B, Kenji mused. I remember insisting on that because we knew Americans are volatile. We wanted a guarantee of stability. You have your breach. I said softly. Not yet, Kenji said. Tomorrow is the signing ceremony. That is when the truth must be spoken. Will you be there? I wasn't invited. I am inviting you, Kenji said. Not as a liaison, as a witness, I nodded. The trap was set. Blake had dug the hole, jumped in, and was currently asking for a shovel to dig deeper. Tomorrow, the earth would fall in. The morning of the signing ceremony dawned with a deceptive clarity. Mount Fuji was visible in the distance, perfect white cone against a brutal blue sky. In my hotel room, I dressed with the precision of a soldier preparing for parade. A navy sheath dress, conservative pearls, hair pulled back into a tight chignon. No loose ends, nothing to distract. Back in San Francisco, it was late afternoon. The panic was just starting to set in. I checked my email. Dave from Legal had sent 3 more messages, each more frantic than the last. Mika, please call me. Lake isn't answering. The board is asking why the liaison continuity box isn't checked in the compliance software. Did you sign a waiver? If you didn't sign a waiver and you aren't employed, we technically don't have a deal structure. I didn't reply. I wasn't an employee. I was a ghost. And ghosts don't answer compliance queries. I imagined Blake in his hotel suite at the Ritz-Carlton. He was probably hungover from the sake he poured himself. He was probably shouting at the junior staff to find the HDMI cables. He was likely practicing his signature, thinking about the bonus he was going to buy a boat with. He had no idea that the symbolic clause he had mocked, the woke window dressing, was actually the load-bearing wall of the entire agreement. Clause 14B wasn't just about having a translator. It was a key person clause. In international private equity and high-stakes partnerships, these are common for CEOs or visionaries. It's rare for a cultural liaison, but Tanaka-san had insisted. He had told our CEO 7 years ago, I do not understand your country's haste. I trust Mika-san, she is the bridge. If the bridge collapses, traffic stops. Our CEO had signed it, thinking it was a nice compliment. Blake hadn't read it. I took a taxi to the Kobayashi headquarters in the Marinauchi district. The building was a monolith of glass and steel, intimidating and silent. I didn't go to the lobby where Blake and his team were gathering. I used the side entrance, scanning the QR code pass Kenji had sent me. The security guard nodded at me. Good morning, Mika-san. It has been a long time. Too long, Sato-san, I said. I went up to the 40th floor, to the executive observation deck that overlooked the main boardroom. It was a private viewing gallery, usually used for translators or junior legal aides to observe proceedings without cluttering the room. From behind the one-way glass, I looked down into the boardroom. It was impressive. A table long enough to land a plane on. The Japanese side was already seated. 12 men in dark suits sitting in perfect silence, hands on their knees. In the center sat Chairman Tanaka. He looked frail but hard, like dried driftwood. On the table, right next to the American flag, was an empty chair. It wasn't just an empty spot, it was a specific chair. The nameplate in front of it read, Cultural Liaison Officer. The Japanese side knew they had put the chair there on purpose. It was a test. The double doors opened. Blake walked in. He looked loud. Even through the glass, his energy was discordant. He strode in, grinning, followed by Tyler and two other terrified-looking associates. Blake walked up to the table. He reached out to shake Tanaka's hand. Tanaka didn't stand up. He didn't bow. He just looked at Blake's hand like it was a dead fish. Blake pulled his hand back, awkwardly wiping it on his pants. Good morning, Blake boomed. Great day for a deal, right? The translator whispered to Tanaka. Tanaka said nothing. Blake looked around the table. He saw the empty chair. Oh hey, Blake said, pointing at it. We don't need that extra seat. Mika isn't here. You can just scoot in. He actually reached out and grabbed the back of the chair to move it away. A gasp went through the Japanese side of the table. It was a collective intake of breath, sharp and horrified. Tanaka's eyes narrowed. Kenji, sitting to his father's right, stood up. Blake-san, he said, his English perfect and cold. Please do not touch the chair. Blake froze. Okay, just trying to make room, didn't want it to look empty. It is empty, Kenji said. That is the point. Blake laughed nervously. Right, symbolic, I get it, very deep. Anyway, let's get to the signing. I've got a flight at 6 p.m. I watched from the gallery, my heart hammering against my ribs, not from fear, from the pure adrenaline-soaked anticipation of justice. Blake had just tried to physically remove the symbol of the company's honor. He sat down. He opened his folder. He uncapped his pen. Okay, Blake said. Where do I sign? He looked up. No one on the Japanese side had moved. They weren't opening their folders. They were staring at the empty chair. The storm had arrived. The silence in the boardroom was heavy, physical. It pressed against the glass of the observation deck. I could almost feel the weight of it on my skin. Down below, the air conditioning hummed, a low drone that sounded like a dying insect. Blake shifted in his seat. He looked at his watch. He looked at Tyler. He looked at the translator. Is there a problem? Blake asked. His voice was a little higher than usual. Do we need to wait for tea? I love tea. Green, right? Chairman Tanaka sat like a stone statue. He didn't look at Blake. He was looking fixedly at the empty chair with the Cultural Liaison Officer nameplate. Finally, Tanaka spoke. His voice was a rasp, quiet but carrying immense power. He spoke in Japanese. The translator, a young woman who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else on Earth, cleared her throat. She looked terrified. She knew what she had to translate. The chairman asks, she stammered, where is Mika-san? Blake sighed, an exaggerated exhalation of impatience. Okay, look, I told you guys. Mika is unavailable. She's no longer with the project. We've streamlined the team. Efficiency. You guys like efficiency, right? Toyota? Kaizen? He threw out the buzzwords like breadcrumbs, hoping the pigeons would bite. Tanaka didn't blink. He spoke again. Translator, the chairman asks, is she ill? No, Blake said. She's fine. She's just not here. Look, with all due respect, Mika was just an interpreter. I'm the VP of strategy. I have the authority to sign. We don't need her to hold the pen. Just an interpreter. I saw Kenji's hand tighten into a fist on the table. To call a cultural liaison just an interpreter is like calling a neurosurgeon just a mechanic. It misses the entire point of the operation. Naka slowly turned his head to look at Blake. It was the movement of a heavy turret gun finding its target. Mika-san, Tanaka said, speaking English for the first time in 7 years. His accent was thick, but every word was a hammer blow. Knows my wife's name. Mika-san knows my father's grave. Mika-san is trust. He pointed a shaking finger at the empty chair. No Mika, no trust. Blake laughed again, but it sounded like a choke. Okay, that's very poetic, Chairman. Really? But we have a contract. We have an MOU, and frankly, we have a deadline. If we don't sign today, the stock price impact contract, Tanaka interrupted. He switched back to Japanese, speaking rapidly now, his voice rising in volume. The translator went pale. The chairman says the contract includes Article 14b. It stipulates the presence of the designated liaison. He asks if you have terminated Mika-san. Do you notify us 30 days prior as required by the change of key personnel clause? Blake froze. I could see the gears grinding in his head. He hadn't read it. He had absolutely no idea that clause existed. Blake said. Legal handles the fine print. I'm sure they sent an email. Maybe it went to spam. You know how technology is. He was gaslighting a billionaire industrialist. It was breathtaking. Tanaka looked at Kenji. Kenji nodded slowly. Kenji opened his folder. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. We received no notification, Kenji said. However, we did receive a Google alert that your company filed a WARN notice in California listing cultural department as eliminated. Is this true? Blake's face went from flushed to chalk white. That's internal HR matter. It doesn't affect the deliverables. It affects the honor, Tanaka said. The chairman stood up. The sound of his chair scraping back was like a gunshot. Startled, Blake stood up too. Whoa, okay, let's calm down. If you need a liaison, I can hire one. I'll get the best one in Tokyo. I'll get you 10 liaisons. Just sit down, let's sign, and we can sort out the staffing later. Tanaka looked at Blake with an expression of profound pity. You cannot buy soul, Tanaka said in English. He turned to the empty chair. And then, he did the unthinkable. He bowed to the chair. It was a deep bow, a respectful bow, a bow you give to a valued equal. He held it for 3 seconds. Then he straightened up, turned his back on Blake, and walked toward the door. We are finished, the translator whispered. Her voice trembled. The meeting is over. Wait, Blake shouted. He actually rounded the table, chasing the 70-year-old man. You can't just walk out. We have a deal? This is a $160 million partnership. Can't tank this over one employee. Tanaka stopped at the door. He didn't turn around. The deal was not the money, Tanaka said. The deal was the people. You have no people. He walked out. The 12 executives followed him in a silent, flowing line. Blake was left standing alone in the massive boardroom, clutching his plastic pen, next to the empty chair that had defeated him. Up in the gallery, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was done. The bridge had collapsed, and Blake was standing in the wreckage. The boardroom doors swung shut, leaving a silence so profound it felt like a vacuum. Blake stood there for a full 10 seconds, staring at the wood grain of the closed door. Then the explosion happened. Are you kidding me? Blake screamed. He threw the folder across the room. Papers scattered like confetti, confidential schematics, pricing models, legal drafts fluttering down onto the pristine carpet. He walked. He actually walked over a secretary. Tyler, the junior associate, was frantically typing on his phone. Blake, the stock is reacting. Someone leaked that the meeting ended early. We're down 4% in pre-market. Fix it, Blake roared, his face a mask of red fury. Call legal. Call the CEO. Tell them the Japanese are being irrational. Tell them they're breaching. We'll sue them into the Stone Age. He spun around and kicked the empty chair. The chair, heavy and expensive, toppled over with a crash. Stupid, soft, skills, Blake yelled, punctuating each word with a gesture at the fallen chair. I watched for another moment, cataloging the image for my memory bank. It was pathetic. It was the tantrum of a child who had broken a toy because he didn't understand how to play with it. I turned away from the glass and walked out of the observation deck. I took the elevator down to the lobby. I knew exactly where Tanaka and his team would be going. There was a private tea garden in the courtyard of the building, a place they went to decompress after high-stress meetings. I walked into the garden. The noise of the city faded away, replaced by the trickle of a bamboo water feature. Tanaka was sitting on a stone bench, looking at a koi pond. Kenji was standing beside him. The other executives were clustered quietly in the background. I walked onto the gravel path. My heels made a crunching sound. Kenji looked up. He nudged his father. Tanaka turned. When he saw me, his stony expression broke. His shoulders dropped. He looked suddenly like a grandfather who had just found a lost child. Mika-san, he said softly. I walked up to him. I didn't offer a handshake. I didn't offer a hug. I bowed. A deep 45-degree bow held for the appropriate count. Chairman, I said in Japanese, I am deeply sorry for the disruption to your day. I am ashamed that my country sent you such rudeness. Tanaka stood up. He walked over to me. He didn't bow. He reached out and took both my hands in his. This was a breach of protocol so massive, so affectionate that the executives behind him gasped again. You are not with them? Tanaka asked, searching my face. No, I said. I was terminated. I am a free agent. Tanaka nodded, a fierce light returning to his eyes. Good. Then you are free to accept a new offer. He looked at Kenji. Kenji stepped forward, pulling a business card from his pocket, but it wasn't a Kobayashi Industries card. It was a card for a global consultancy firm, Apex Global Strategy, one of the largest competitors to my old company. We have a joint venture with Apex, Kenji said. We are building a new Tokyo headquarters. We need a director of international relations, someone who has the trust. He handed me the card with 2 hands. The salary is double, Kenji whispered in English, a small smile playing on his lips and no hoodies. I took the card. It would be my honor. Just then, the glass doors of the lobby burst open. Blake and his team came storming out, looking for taxis, looking for a signal, looking for a miracle. Blake saw me. He stopped dead in his tracks. He blinked as if he was hallucinating. He looked at me, standing next to Tanaka, holding Kenji's card, surrounded by the very men who had just walked out on him. Mika, Blake shouted. He started to run toward us. Mika, what the hell are you doing here? Fix this, tell them to come back inside. I can rehire you, we'll bridge your service. Just talk to him. I looked at Blake. I looked at the sweat on his shirt, the panic in his eyes. I turned to Tanaka. Chairman, I said in English so Blake could hear. Do you know this man? Naka looked at Blake. He looked at me. He smiled, a genuine, mischievous smile. I do not, Tanaka said. I see only a tourist. Tanaka turned his back on Blake. Come, Mika-san, let us get tea, real tea. We walked away into the garden, leaving Blake screaming at the glass, trapped on the other side of a world he would never understand. The flight home, well, to my new home base in Tokyo for the onboarding process was peaceful, but my phone was a war zone. News of the deal's collapse hit the wire services before Blake even got to the airport. WSJ alert, Kobayashi deal implodes. US tech firm stock plunges 12%. CEO cite cultural misalignments. Cultural misalignments. That was the PR spin. It sounded better than VP insulted chairman with speakers and arrogance. By the time I checked my old email, which I still had access to on a tablet I hadn't wiped yet, the carnage was absolute. Subject, please call ASAP from CEO office Mika, we need to talk. There has been a misunderstanding. Blake has been placed on administrative leave. We want to discuss your reinstatement. Name your price. We can offer equity. I deleted it. Subject, legal notice/NDA from Legal Dave Mika, we are reminding you of your non-compete. If you are advising Kobayashi, we will sue. I forwarded that one to the Apex Global legal team. Their general counsel replied to me within 3 minutes. Lol, your non-compete was voided when they fired you without cause and failed to pay the retention bonus stipulated in your original contract. Tell Dave to call me if he wants to be embarrassed. I didn't tell Dave anything. I let him sweat. 2 days later, the full story leaked on a tech blog. Someone, not me, maybe Sarah, maybe a vengeful waiter, gave the play-by-play of the speaker's incident and the empty chair. Blake became a meme. Literally. There was a picture of him kicking the chair with the caption, "How to lose $160M in 10 seconds." Another one showed a picture of Danny DeVito bowing, with the text, "More cultural awareness than Blake." I sat in my new temporary office in Roppongi Hills, watching the stock ticker of my old company bleed red. I missed their quarterly earnings. The board called for a vote of no confidence in the CEO. Then came the phone call. It was the CEO himself, not an assistant. Mika, he said. He sounded old, tired. Hello, David, I said. We messed up, he said. I let Blake run loose. I didn't value the soft side. I see that now. Tanaka won't take my calls. He returned the speakers unopened. Mika, you're the only one he trusts. If you come back, we can salvage this. I'll fire Blake. I'll give you the VP title. Please, it was a tempting moment to go back as the savior, to rule the kingdom that had exiled me, but I looked out the window at the Tokyo Tower glowing in the night. I looked at the orchid on my desk, a gift from Kenji. David, I said, you didn't just mess up a meeting. You broke the law. You can't fix that with a VP title. We can pay you. I'm already employed, I said. My new employer values the bridge before the toll. Who? David asked. Who did you go to? Read the press release tomorrow, I said. Mika, wait, I hung up. I blocked the number. I took a sip of tea. It was roasted barley tea, Tanaka-san's favorite. The fallout continued for weeks. Blake was officially fired for cause. He tried to sue for wrongful termination, claiming he was set up. The discovery phase revealed his emails calling the Japanese team dinosaurs and me window dressing. He settled for pennies and is now reportedly working as a consultant for a crypto startup that is currently under SEC investigation. My old company had to restate their earnings. They laid off 15% of the staff. I felt bad for the staff, for Sarah, for the innocent ones. I hired Sarah a week later as my operations manager. I learned the hard way that culture isn't a line item. It's the operating system. If you crash the OS, the hardware is just a paperweight. 6 months later, I am sitting in my permanent office in Osaka. The walls are glass, but they overlook the castle gardens, not a parking lot. My title is Executive Director of Pacific Strategy. The partnership between Apex Global, my new firm, and Kobayashi Heavy Industries was signed last week. It is worth $200 million. The signing ceremony was flawless. There were no empty chairs. I sat next to Chairman Tanaka. We drank 1994 Cabernet. He told me jokes about his granddaughter. He didn't mention Blake. Blake is a ghost, a bad spirit that has been exorcised from the building. Yesterday, I received a package from California. It was from the HR department of my old firm. A standard Cobra benefits termination notice. The final bureaucratic whimper of my former life. I shredded it. I don't drink alone to Danny DeVito asthma, and I don't sabotage collagen injections. My revenge wasn't messy. It was clean. It was precise. It was exactly what they deserved. I won by being exactly who I was, the person who knew which way to bow. I walked over to the window. The sun was setting over Osaka, turning the sky a bruised purple. On my desk sits a framed copy of the new Memorandum of Understanding. The final clause, Clause 19, is highlighted in gold ink by Tanaka himself. This agreement is founded upon the mutual trust established and maintained by Mika-san. Her presence is required for all future amendments. I smiled. Blake called me window dressing. He was right. I am the window. And without me, they couldn't see the world. So, to anyone out there being told their soft skills don't matter, or that their cultural knowledge is just fluff, let them think that. Let them fire you. Let them bring hoodies to a sword fight. And then, sit back and watch them bow to the empty chair. Because in the end, the empty chair is the loudest person in the room.